Okay, so what was discussed in the paradox of choice is that uh, what the speaker said is that he's going to focus on something he called practical wisdom and the like remoralization of professional life. So he he said that if we know certain rules about practical wisdom, then we can think about what went wrong and what to do so it doesn't happen again. Okay, so he said that in organizations it's not effective to have rules or to have smarter incentives to encourage good behavior. He said that those aren't good enough to encourage good behavior, but that we need virtue in order to do this. And he said the particular virtue he wanted to talk about was practical wisdom. So he discussed four different ideas within his speech. He said that we can't live without virtue, um, that practical wisdom is the key virtue, the most important one, that there's currently a war on wisdom, and that there's still hope in the end. So, what he said is that practical wisdom is comprised of moral will and moral skill. So, moral will is the choice that we can make. Moral skill is to decide what is the best choice to make. He said that wise people, they improvise. They're able to figure out based on a situation the appropriateness of a choice. Um, they know how to use moral skills not to help themselves but to help other people. And he said that this idea of practical wisdom, it's not born within us, it's made within us. Um, and okay, so he talked about how rules and incentives don't help with encouraging practical wisdom within organizations. So I'll tackle first the rules part. So okay, he said that rules actually limit improvisation. So he gives us a story of CPS taking away a kid from a dad who accidentally gave his kid alcohol. And they all knew it was an accident. He didn't intentionally try to get his kid drunk or anything, but because of the rules of CPS, they had to take the kid away from the dad for 3 days. And then finally the family was reunited after a few days, and the poor kid had to go to a foster home and everything. So what he said there is that those rules really actually limited the people in CPS and the people in that family, because they had those rules in place, they couldn't actually make a moral judgment about what was right and wrong in that situation. And although those rules were placed to make something safe, it like hindered that situation greatly. So rules really limit us in our moral, in our practical wisdom to choose something that's moral or not. Because obviously in that situation, it wasn't very moral to take that kid away from his dad, because the dad didn't do anything wrong. Okay, the second idea was that incentives, like better incentives, don't encourage practical wisdom. Don't encourage people to practice their moral will and their moral skill. So the example that he used was that there was a daycare, and parents kept getting late to pick up their kids, later and later. So then, in order to set up an incentive, the daycare worker decided to fine people when they were late. But even though he set up the fine, people were still going to be late, and they just had to decide, okay, is it worth it for me to pay the $20 to be late or not? And then since people were still late all the time, he decided, okay, I'm just going to get rid of that rule. And because he did that, even more people were late. Because now they're like, oh, well, now we don't have to pay. Now it's completely worth it to be late. So the idea that the speaker was talking about was that incentives make us think not what is the right thing to do, but rather what's the incentive for me? Like what in the situation is best to my interests, not what is the best right thing to do. So incentives encourage people to choose stuff for themselves and see what will benefit them rather than what's really the moral thing to do. So so he said that um, that we can learn moral skills and moral will from people who are exemplars, who are moral exemplars. He said that the hope is that we can still encourage moral skill and moral will within the organizations that we're in. And he said that wisdom is the most important thing, the most important virtue, because it allows all of our other virtues to be displayed by us in the right place in the right time. So, like, if we choose to make a good choice in a certain situation, then that's going to display our virtues of maybe honesty or punctuality or other virtues that show good qualities of us. So he said that wisdom is most important because it displays all of our other virtues as well, and that even though we're not born with this practical wisdom, sometimes that we can still be taught and trained by those that are examples to gain this practical wisdom.